In the Delphi murder case against Richard Allen, there are documents that were waiting to be unsealed and have just been released as of the time of this recording. Also, Richard Allen's health is said to be deteriorating rapidly. The defense wants him to be moved, and there's even talk about him shunning his wife in court, which is not the norm. Also, there's specific evidence wanting to be excluded, which will be very interesting to see how that will play out. And there's also reports of Richard confessing to the murders of Abby Williams and Libby German. So now, let's get into it. The judge in the case, Judge Fran Gull, had made a promise to release certain sealed documents in the Delphi case against Richard Allen. The decision came after requests were made by a lawyer and reportedly several podcasters, including Kevin Greenlee from The Murder Sheet. Now, the prosecution and investigators initially wanted to keep these crucial documents sealed to avoid jeopardizing the investigation. However, these requests were filed asking the judge to reconsider. And Kevin from The Murder Sheet expressed concern about the improper sealing of these documents, saying that neither the defense nor the prosecution had requested it. Yet, they were being sealed. He said it led to confusion among the public. He further stated that in the majority of criminal cases, information is released without hindering successful prosecutions and convictions. Therefore, he says he sees no reason why releasing the information would impede this particular case. He said, quote, "I've seen no sign that releasing information would hamper this case. Certainly 99.9% of all criminal cases in this country, information is released and somehow people still get successfully prosecuted and convicted. And by releasing this information, we'd be able to see information like what was taken from Richard Allen's residence back in October of 2022 during a search warrant, where the authorities searched for 12 hours while Richard and his wife waited outside. In the affidavit, it states, among other items, officers located jackets, boots, knives, and firearms, and it's also said to include a .40 caliber pistol. Richard was arrested 10 days later without bond and has been sitting in jail ever since. During the search, a neighbor said they were definitely snooping around a lot at the fire pit and at the backyard. Lots of flashlights, lots of pictures, lots of sifting. Investigators also left the house with a stack of books, bundles of cloth or clothing, it was said, a shopping bag, and a shoebox. They also towed Richard's black SUV. But now there's a problem, because in today's release of the documents, there seemed to be a caveat: no probable cause documents. We saw a list of motions, etc., but not the ones we were looking or hoping for. Here's what the document says. It says, counsel agrees with the court that the public interest is best served by transparency, but that certain pleadings should remain sealed. Counsel agrees that the original unredacted affidavit for probable cause shall remain sealed as it lists names of juvenile witnesses, that the transport orders previously entered and future orders shall remain sealed for security purposes, and that the defense ex parte motions and related orders shall remain sealed pursuant to long-established case law. All other pleadings filed prior to the date of this order shall be unsealed and available to the public, except for the pleadings explicitly mentioned in this paragraph. Future pleadings and filings that are to be confidential shall comply with court rules. It also says, as hundreds of pages of documents are being unsealed, this may create obstacles to the clerk and the public. Now, in other court proceedings, Richard's defense team filed a motion to exclude ballistic evidence from the trial. They deemed the evidence as flimsy, they said, and argued that the discipline of tool mark identification, known as ballistics, lacked scientific validity. However, the specific details of the motion were not disclosed in the documents. So now, regarding these ballistics, at the crime scene of where Abby and Libby were found, a previously unfired .40 caliber round was found in between their bodies, and forensics evidence connected it to Richard's gun they found at his house. Through forensic analysis, the lab determined that the unspent round discovered at the crime scene, quote, had been cycled through Richard M. Allen's pistol. And it was also said that when he was asked about the unspent bullet, it was said that he did not have an explanation of why the bullet was found between the bodies. And during a hearing, discussions about Richard Allen's alleged confessions dominated the proceedings. Richard's defense team acknowledged the existence of these confessions. In fact, the defense attorney said and was quoted saying, "He has made incriminating statements implicating himself in the crime." But the defense also argued that due to their client's fragile mental state, the confessions are unreliable. And more about Richard's fragile state in a minute. They said that Richard had made inconsistent statements due to the stress of his captivity and difficulty communicating with his attorneys. But the prosecutor said that Richard had confessed to these murders multiple times while incarcerated. In fact, he said that Richard has made multiple confessions to multiple people. This was during his time spent at the Westville Correctional Facility, where he's been since he was arrested back in November. And a defense attorney who isn't part of the case was interviewed and said he believed that Richard confessed in written letters to the warden of the prison and said that he witnessed this information in a court hearing. Now, it's going to be interesting with the defense acknowledging the confessions, but it also puts doubt in the jury because of his deteriorating mental and physical state. And in addition to these legal arguments, there were these concerns that were raised about Richard Allen's health and treatment in prison. The defense claimed that his mental and physical well-being had deteriorated since his arrest, and they sought to move him from the Westville Correctional Facility, where he's being held in solitary confinement, and they argued that the conditions at Westville were inhumane and impacted Richard's ability to participate in his defense effectively, which is his right to do. There are photos that were presented as evidence of Richard's decline in both his physical and emotional health, describing his condition as a steep decline. And there is a stark difference from Richard when he first got into jail and now. The defense described his current condition as being that like a prisoner of war. They requested that he be moved to a local prison called the Cass County Jail for improved living conditions. But the prosecution argued that moving him to a county jail would just result in worse conditions. They highlighted that Westville provided better access to mental health treatment, and the defense countered by saying their client deserved basic human rights and should be treated like any other pre-trial defendant. His attorney said, "We are asking for basic human rights. We're not asking to put him in the Holiday Inn." Now, it was said that Judge Fran Gull considered the defense's request and deliberated on the issue of moving Richard Allen to a different prison, but the decision on this matter was pending. I also heard that it was denied, so if you know that, let me know below. I'm catching up. But in court, Richard appeared sick and frail, having lost a noticeable amount of weight in the months since his arrest. His wife, Kathy, burst into tears when she saw him, and the defense is also saying that he's gone from a man who was in good humor and polite to the inability to communicate with his own lawyer. The defense wrote, "Simply put, this version of Richard Allen was a very different version than counsel for Mr. Allen had interacted with over the past 5 months." I was thinking about this and his condition. Like I said, it's obvious there is a difference, and he's probably lost a good 50 pounds, if not more. I have a couple of thoughts about this though. Feel free to let me know, what your thoughts are in the comments below. But first, there would naturally be an expected weight loss. We know that he frequented pubs a lot with his wife, Kathy, and, pub food is not the greatest, and usually portions are beyond what a person should have calorie-wise, really. And so you're going to jail, you're not eating like that anymore. So I would expect to be weight loss. However, with the conditions that were explained, that he was in solitary confinement, he's being treated worse than those who have been convicted, all those kinds of things. They say he's also been sleeping on a pad on the floor of cold concrete, and it was 6 by 10 foot room. He's not given a change of clothes for days and isn't given a visitation with his wife or family. But a Carroll County sheriff said while it was evident he lost weight, he's still eating, showering, and having recreation time. And it said that his cell is actually 12 by 8.5 and is segregated. Really, 12 by 8.5 is like a regular, master bedroom that we call it here in Canada. I don't know what you guys call it down there. So it's also said that he's actually allowed 3 showers a week with 3 sets of clothing. He has access to commissary, and he has bought clothing, socks, and shoes. He also has a tablet and can access movies, music, and phone calls, and is afforded 1 hour of recreation time 5 times per week. I don't know about you, but that's more than I get for privileges with movies and music and recreation time. What's that? But the other stuff doesn't sound too fun, does it? But neither is, murdering 2 innocent teens, allegedly, if he's the actual killer. So you got to add that in. But when I first heard about this as well, I found it very curious. Even the timing of it was said that Richard actually saw documents. It said that's when he started to rapidly decline. In fact, in court, it was testified that Richard started showing strange behavior the day after he was given legal work. So another thought is something I talked about in my previous videos, that he was hiding in plain sight, and it was talked about by experts that perhaps the reason why there wasn't a repeat tragedy or murders, was because it was possible that there was still enjoyment of sorts living in the town and hearing stories of the girls, and he's reliving it. So my thought maybe that's the difference. There isn't a supply there, of course, if he is in fact the alleged killer. Now, as for this Westville Correctional Facility, located in Westville, Indiana, it's a prison for adult males. It's a medium security prison that houses over 3,270 inmates. Offenders are encouraged to take vocational courses such as horticulture, business, technology, automotive repair, culinary arts, and building maintenance. Substance abuse treatment is also available for all inmates who require it, and counseling is available for a variety of issues from pre-release to general life skills. That's all also available. And inmates can also receive education courses to obtain a GED while incarcerated. As for Richard's wife, usually it's said Richard acknowledges her in court, and according to the Murder Sheet podcasters, they also talked about him mouthing the words "I love you" to her, but apparently in one of his last hearings, he just walked past her without acknowledging her or recognizing her at all. And these podcasters said that they were in attendance and witnessed his demeanor. And it was said that his face was just completely blank. And you can see while he's walking, he's just kind of staring off, and he just seems off. What are your thoughts on this? I'd love for you to weigh in. Trial date is set for Richard Allen's case, and it's set for January 8th of 2024, and the trial is expected to last 3 weeks, and jurors will be selected from Allen County and transported to Delphi. Check out my Delphi playlist right here, and you can check out my other videos down below. I'll have that in a list, or you can check one out that's recommended for you right here. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video.